So with that being said, I want to lead you guys through just a rehash of 2021 and talk about some cybersecurity trends. And like Mark said, if you have any questions, we'll have a portion at the end to go over them. If you want to drop them into the chat, that's totally fine as well. So why don't we jump right on into it? So a year in review. Well, interestingly enough, technology that's used to combat security threats are very important, and investments in those areas are not changing. But time and time again, we see the same methods successfully carried out, and usually they're against the same targets, unsuspecting employees. You know, like guys with their head down on their cell phone while crossing the street. Well, it's safe to say we should all know the drill by now, right? You know, don't click that, or be careful with email senders that you don't recognize. Maybe it's not subconscious enough. Cybersecurity teams, I think everywhere at this point, have heeded these warnings and have tried to overemphasize that to their customer base, so employees wouldn't put the organization at risk. But it seems like time and time again, we keep seeing these attacks originating with the same methods, such as a phishing email. And so there's a huge uncertainty, and rightfully so, as far as cybersecurity is concerned, and what preparation efforts look like, and are we safe? That question that always lingers. And research has shown over 80% of all cyber attacks still originate with a phishing email, and the number of insider threats even has also increased, and that number almost by 50% in the past 2 years alone. Whether it's malicious intent or not, it's statistics like this why security teams view their employees as an optimal gateway for hackers to get inside the network, and they also view their attack surface as something that they need to continuously reevaluate. So when we look back to last year, keep in mind, you'll start seeing a lot of the same themes. And I think as a community, we can take a gigantic step forward, vendors alike and partners with folks like Atlantic Data Security can help to, ultimately, end these risks that we're fighting day in and day out. So I'm going to jump ahead a little bit just because in the interest of time, I had some other things prepared I'd love to run through with you all. So bear with me. So let's take a look back at the most notable security incidents and breaches in 2021. When I go through this, I'm not really I'm not the biggest fan of the shame game. So I intentionally don't name organizations. I'm not going to put the name of the companies in there. But when we talk about it, if you know who it is, if you want to drop it in the chat, by all means, or if you know who it is, great. This will be like a rhetorical game of Jeopardy. So let's get right on into it. Actually, before we do that, there is one interesting point of clarification that I think any legal or privacy professional that might be on today's webinar can appreciate. And this is something that I'm always stressing when I'm having conversations. It's the difference between a security incident, a security breach, and a data breach. They all have different meanings, and they also have different legal implications. And so across 2021, we saw a vast array of different incidents that had occurred. Some of them actually were confirmed and classified as data breaches. Others were security incidents of a different nature. But nonetheless, the approaches to each of these, let's always assume the worst. And so that should be the preparatory, I think, habit that we take in structuring ourselves to prevent being the next, frankly, but not to be, all encompassed. There are some differences there. And certainly when it does come time to actually report something, there's certainly the legal jargon that, constitutes what actually gets reported versus what doesn't need to be. So let's get into it. In 2021, this graphic is pretty self-explanatory, and there's no doubt in my mind that this record isn't breakable again. But I do have hope in our community that we can put together a halt to to the drastic year-over-year increase and flatten that curve. And we can do that through improved best practices, knowledge sharing, and frankly, swifter response times. But needless to say, breaches were everywhere in 2021. And what I did was I just wanted to note some of I'd say the ones that everyone talked about. These were the ones that were, I think, started to make terminology that we all know because it's our profession, but it started to make things like ransomware and the likes household amongst folks that don't even work in our industry. And they were picked up by most of your reputable news outlets. If anyone's seeing a red line on the screen, by the way, usually someone else has co-host or presenter rights, and there's like a red pen annotation feature. I did not do that. So I don't know how to erase it, but we'll just bear with that. So the first one that I'll point out is it was an IT management software firm. And this IT management software firm was targeted by a hacker gang known as the Revel Collective. Hopefully I'm even pronouncing that correctly. But this Revel Collective hit the organization with a ransomware attack and demanded $70 million in Bitcoin. Now, this attack was significant due to its impact on businesses across 5 continents, including shutting down public schools in New Zealand. It closed a major grocery chain in Sweden. It disrupted operations for hundreds of businesses across the United States. Actually, it ultimately impacted upwards of 1,500 SMB orgs across 5 continents. And these were all clients of this IT management software firm. And they found their operations offline, literally in the middle of a holiday weekend. And as investigators peeled back the onion a bit, they found that these hackers of this collective, they targeted a management tool called the VSA server. And this left unpatched victimized many. And imagine around holiday, you may not have your full team in. So as you can imagine, that lingered for quite some time. And that was in July of 2021. The next one, this is American Multinational Technology Corporation. Many of you might know who this is. I might have given it away by naming who the threat actor is, but nonetheless, interesting enough, more of a bit of an irony of fate, I should say, that the hackers were in fact, this hacking group spearheaded by a Chinese collective that called themselves Hafnium, or they were labeled Hafnium, if you will, but they were actually tipped off by this corporation's somewhat proactive security patch release announcement. And that kicked off a massive wave of hacking attempts spearheaded by Hafnium, as I mentioned. And they were able to access emails of more than 30,000 organizations across the United States. This attack compromised email communications for small businesses and municipalities across the US and around the world. Worse yet, infected devices were seeded with password protected tools that allowed the hackers to complete remote access to those systems. The ultimate fallout from this, it's uncertain, even to this day, as I'm talking to you guys here in 2022, but a hack of this breadth and scale is likely to be felt for years to come. The backdoors installed by the attackers could very well be used to steal valuable data or install ransomware. And many of the affected organizations likely don't even know they've been hacked. If anybody knows who that is, feel free to drop that one in the chat. This one is an IT management software firm. This one actually, fine print moment here, disclaimer, I guess I could say. This one originated in 2020, but it continued into February of 2021. It was one of the most catastrophic data breaches of 2020. And its aftermath, unfortunately, trickled right into 2021. And this was a collective or APT group. They were labeled APT 29. They also went by Cozy Bear. But digging into that a little further, was deemed to be a Russian foreign intelligence operative. And they took advantage of a compromised program and invaded an estimated 18,000 private and government affiliated networks. The breach of this scale, it granted these attackers an access to an abundance of personally identifiable information, which included financial, source code, passwords, and usernames. Many of us know who this is, as many organizations were affected by this. As a matter of fact, as it reached the government level here in the States, at the federal level, CISA actually worked tirelessly to restore security and combat this attack, and even made a proclamation saying that frankly, if you could not get the appropriate patches in place, any system that was deemed vulnerable to this attack was going to be taken offline entirely. And there were vulnerabilities that subsequently were released, as well as supporting patches well into 2021. So, and this, the source of this was, again, this was malware. If anyone knows who this organization is, by all means, drop that one into the chat. That one was awfully notable as well. And, I think that was a wake-up call for a lot of us. And unfortunately, it didn't stop there. Now, this one, talk about being blindsided, and frankly, the gift and the curse of being a security researcher. On one hand, you do it to help, but on the other hand, you open up the box of people that want to now take that and use it for harm. And this amounted into a very disastrous 0 day to close out 2021. This created a massive wave in the cybersecurity industry. This back in December, the researchers published a proof of concept that was a critical exploit for a remote code, execution vulnerability in a logging library. Won't give that one away too much. That's used in a significant number of internet applications. In the weeks following, businesses worldwide worked frantically to identify and mitigate the impact of this exploit. All the while, security pros and experts just around the clock raced to release patches and deploy scans using their tools to guide their organization down the path to best recover or protect themselves from being victimized by this exploit. Now, while researchers continue to unpack the total impact of this threat, attackers are rapidly crafting new obfuscation tactics and making it difficult to nail down indicators and signatures as these new attack tactics are created just as quickly. And if you didn't know, we actually here at Arctic Wolf Networks, we developed a deep scan tool to assist with remediation efforts for this. So if you don't know about that yet, by all means, would love to have a conversation. This one, the source of this attack, again, they leveraged code that was not built for malicious use and hijacked that and leveraged additional attacks to stage to carry out bad intent. Things like ransomware amounted from this. If you don't know what this is, by all means, use my hint at the top left-hand side of this slide, which I actually found pretty funny. If you're not a basketball fan, you may not get that one, actually. Now, this one, I can say personally impacted by this, as we all probably were, but collectively, I think we all felt this one, particularly at home when we're not actually at work. But this was American oil pipeline system. This system was taken offline for more than 3 days. This was a suspected Russian hacking group. They went by Dark Side Collective. Now, the thing about this oil pipeline system, they provide 45% of the East Coast supply of gasoline, diesel fuel, and jet fuel. So that was a major blow. As a matter of fact, in the wake of this attack, Congress actually moved to pass new cybersecurity standards specifically for the oil pipeline system. Frankly, I just remember having to pass gas station after gas station after gas station because the lines of cars were so long, of people frantic and fearful that they would never be able to get the $20 regular that they typically get on a calm Saturday afternoon. It was absolutely madness. But that was the last of, in my opinion, the most notable, I think, security incidents and breaches that occurred in 2021. If you know this oil pipeline system, again, feel free to drop that one in the chat. So here at Arctic Wolf, we're obviously very privy to the threat landscape and a lot of the challenges and pain points that our client base are experiencing, and why they rely heavily on partners like Atlantic Data Security to help them, take a broader stroke, if you think about it, against their attack surface and also their systems and the various ways in which they can harden such systems. And from a security operations perspective, we pride ourselves in being an instrumental part of the equation, particularly as it relates to just your day-to-day operational framework. This is a NIST-inspired approach that we've taken as an organization to help our clients with security operations. This framework identifies the key functions and disciplines that yield outcomes across the board to help manage and reduce cyber risk. Arctic Wolf's services, and we offer a primary service, but we do have a collection of services that can be tailored and fit the need of what your company's security posture is today. But our services, they assist organizations large and small of all verticals to help implement effective security operations using this very framework. We have the capability and expertise to support organizations with all 5 NIST categories and the 20 control families that underpin them. An instrumental pillar of the service is visibility and coverage. When it comes to protecting any organization, the entire attack surface is at stake. That includes devices, that includes anything over the network, and also cloud. And let's not forget, there's been a tremendous focus on each of these areas for years, and we know spending is only going to continue increasing via tools and services for those areas. But all roads lead back to employees, the front line of defense for many organizations, large and small. And far too often, they tend to be the weakest link in the chain. It's a problem, for sure. But we know that the entire attack surface has to encompass them as well. And that is one area that we also help out with. We even help with the education and improvement of your employees' abilities to remain secure and protect your organization by making wise decisions and incorporating best practice habits into their day-to-day. That's both at work and when they're not at work. Because the bad guys have been highly focused on targeting people. As I mentioned before earlier, over 80% of all data breaches have occurred because bad guys have found some cybersecurity mistake made by an employee, whether they tricked them into clicking a phishing link via social engineering or they've uncovered some sort of misconfiguration. So the attack surface from our perspective is huge. As a matter of fact, a study done by Charles River Associates, they showed that on average, organizations, based on the IT leaders that they surveyed, they reported investigating nearly 1,400 incidents per year, which equate to about 3 per day. And this is across North America. So it's 33% of all the organizations that they surveyed that were investigating at least 3. And there were a handful of organizations that were investigating way more than 3 incidents per day. And that incident, if you think about it from a macro level, it's coming from the wide array of things that they might be getting reports from or alerts. Why is that number so high? Because frankly, these tools are simultaneously logging and alerting. Imagine being a tennis player and you're in a singles match, but the opponent is actually a team of 8 and they're all hitting a tennis ball your way. There's frankly zero chance that you're in that match. Even holding 2 rackets, you're still going to be outmatched. And you know what this has tended to mean time and time again, that even though you have that many tools, it's very hard to keep up. And so as a result, there are incidents that are being missed. So unless you have an unlimited team to manage and triage alerts, it's going to be very difficult, and you'll find that incidents, could very well slip through the cracks. At Arctic Wolf, we've built a purpose-built cloud-native platform. It's designed to ingest, parse, and alert on telemetry from all of your security technology investments, regardless of whether they're on premise or in the cloud. And at the heart of our solution is our service-driven teams that provide both strategic and tactical support around the clock. And that's also year round. The concierge security team, it's a unique client by client experience with no frills or fine print gotchas. The human touch added to the service, knowing that there isn't a roundabout call center or prolonged email process to get answers, has been very well received. The triage team, they provide tactical support. So they are hands-on keyboard via their dashboards, and this is 24/7 around the clock, and they're offering detection, response, and remediation. Now, as a tandem, the concierge security team and the triage team, as a complete team provided to you, there's even the benefit of remote incident response during security events whenever needed. And that has also been a great value add for our clients. So what exactly is your ROI from this? And apologies, it looks like the red line is now officially coming into the mix here. So if you can't see anything, let me know. But from an ROI perspective, what do you really get out of investing or partnering with Arctic Wolf? Well, we've gathered some statistics against our 3,000 plus customer base and growing. And the numbers are a testament to how driven we are as a company to help end cyber risk. We're seeing a lot of the metrics that should be going down, go down, like dwell time, for example. How long does it take you to identify an incident or identify a threat or confirm that what you see is in fact a threat? On average, the mean time to identify an intrusion is 206 days. At Arctic Wolf, it's 30 minutes or less. And we're catching low-hanging fruit that would expose the entire tree otherwise, like PII exposure or plain text passwords posted online or exposed online in one way or fashion. Another interesting statistic, combined 61% of our customers that have had suspicious activity caught by Arctic Wolf, turns out it was missed by a security tool they already owned, or passed through an email gateway, and it likely shouldn't have. And it kicked off an investigative work for us to confirm what we think it was and ultimately stop that threat from doing any further damage. What we've seen that amount to was catching things like ransomware earlier in the kill chain, so before it could even detonate, and also things like business email compromise before an actual invoice was turned around and money was sent to a fraudulent recipient. And that's all because of how in-depth and thorough we are with taking in all of your security technologies and understanding, the lay of the land for your organization and really tailoring the service to you and understanding your business intimately. So the one thing that I always get asked about, how much does something like this cost? Well, I can say I gracefully like to bow out of those conversations every time, because I'm not the sales guy, so I don't really know too much about the pricing. But from my understanding of how we price, because from a technical perspective, I have to scope it out, I can tell you it's very predictable. As I mentioned, it's an unlimited data ingest model. So from that regard, it's understandable of what it would cost and what the true ROI is, and we break all that down and we tailor it for you. I coined my own acronym. So the mean time to onboard is below industry average. Actually, I'm going to trademark that. Mean time to onboard. That should be a cybersecurity metric. All the tools that are out there, and everyone comes in and wants to say the next best thing. Well, how long does it take me to actually install this? Well, what's the mean time to onboard that? Well, our mean time to onboard, if you will, because it's cloud native and because it's very service driven, and you're not investing in additional tools. You don't have to buy other tools, and we don't require you to have additional tools to run the service. It does make the onboarding experience that much more seamless. And that incorporates everything from a broad visibility perspective to all the coverage that you would need to be confident that your attack surface is guarded. Ultimately, what I would also add to that, the concierge experience is our difference. So, in conclusion, I do believe we can help, and we would love the opportunity. We can tailor a conversation to you and your organization in 30 minutes or less, and potentially kickstart what would hopefully be a long-lasting security journey with Atlantic Data Security and Arctic Wolf. And with that, I'll leave you with a practical tip. Since passwords aren't really going away and password managers haven't really been as widely adopted as they should, try a passphrase instead. One-word passwords tend to be easier to be cracked, even if you just make them numbers or special characters. Put a little space bar in there, you never know. It actually would make it a tad more difficult, actually make it much more difficult. There's real numbers on that. And it'd be a lot harder for someone to crack that password. Well, that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you. I do appreciate the time. I hope you all enjoy the mixology event. If you have any questions, we'll take a minute or two now to throw them out there. I'll answer them the best I can. If not, we will pass it over to, I believe, Sam, and we'll get it going. Thank you all again.